Welcome to Dear Alice, a lifestyle approach to interior design.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dear Alice. We are so excited. We've got a guest for you guys today. And we also want to say happy Mother's Day to the group. This is our Mother's Day episode. And I wanted to know from you, Corey and Sue, what is one specific way that your mom has influenced you today?
It's a big question. That's a really big question. And I've been thinking about this because there's so many answers directions I could take this. But my mom is, we have like a big Sunday dinner group, like every Sunday. And we have had that like with 30 to 50 people every single Sunday. What she's taught me is that there's always room for one more. If someone brings a friend, there's always room for one. She never turns anyone away. She doesn't show it as far as stress. Like she's always chill. She's always calm. She just makes a few more whatever. And it's kind of like multiplying the one loaf into 10 or, feeding the hundreds. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, and even like growing up, like I'd be like, me and this one friend want to go to California to do this thing or go on a road trip. And she's like, well, make sure that all the other girls in your circle, like make sure invite all them. I'm like, I don't want them to come, but she's just like, but their feelings might get hurt. Anyway, she just she had this all-inclusive energy about her to make sure that nobody ever felt excluded and everybody had a place at the table. And that I think is like one of the biggest things she's taught me is that there's always room for one more.
Inclusion.
And to just, and I think that that's why I have a lot of different circles because I'm like, well, shoot, there's always room for one more.
That's so your personality too. So that's awesome.
Right, so
amazing.
Yeah, always room for one more.
That's
what
awesome.
Grandma told me. So.
Yeah.
How about you, Corey?
I'm going to be real and honest and vulnerable.
Let's go.
Right here. I've spoken to my mom like 3 times in the last 5 years. Okay. We don't have a very close relationship. Just my childhood was a little bit rough. My mom had me when she was like just barely 20. So being a father now, I'm like, man, how do you raise kids at 20 years old? You know what I mean? That's crazy. Yeah. So I would say with that, probably just like strength and confidence that I can do things and figure things out on my own because I kind of had to, in some ways. But as I was thinking about this, the best mom that I know is my wife. Mm-hmm. And so she has.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, like when I think of an amazing mom, that's the first person that pops into my mind. And she's such just a strong person in the sense that when we had kids, I saw her just take on her like shortcomings, her weaknesses, and like totally improve them. Mm-hmm. And for me to like improve yourself is probably the hardest thing to do. To identify it and be like, I need to change this, but then actually to like implement things and do it. And just kind of that like extreme accountability that it takes to be able to do that is amazingly strong. So, watching my wife do that was pretty awesome. And it taught me that's something we should all strive to do is just kind of, pinpoint our own weaknesses and work on them.
So good. Yeah. I love that.
What about you, Jess?
Oh gosh, guys, my mom is such a North Star for me. I could cry thinking about it, but she is
cry on this podcast.
Thank you.
Like if we talk about it for longer, we still will.
Yeah, she's so graceful and she just has such integrity. But I think one of the things I admire so much about her, especially being a woman in my 40s, is I've never heard her talk bad about anybody. Like she always gives people the benefit of the doubt. And she's such a good example to me. And even if I were to call and vent to her, she would probably start telling me all the great things that person is probably doing that I'm not seeing.
Which is so frustrating too on the other end.
I'm like,
just like,
I'm not going to call you
mad at them right now.
Like, don't try to take me out of the pond. Just sit there with me, like in the pond.
Yeah, totally. I know. I have a girlfriend that's a life coach, and she'll say, "So, do you want me to get in the pool with you, or do you want help getting out of the pool?" Which is what Susan's saying about the pond. Where my mom is definitely like, you're getting out of the pool. I'm going to get you out of the pool and I'm going to tell you how to look into the light and choose a better, just a better outcome, and to see people for, I think, all of her life experience, which, she's had not an easy upbringing, but somehow she's found a way to just see the good in people. And she's just this eternal optimist. And I love her outlook on life. It really does make life more beautiful. So
I love that.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
I do too.
Happy Mother's Day to everyone.
Exactly. And I'm sure our special guest today has a really good answer to the question too. And we'll explain that connection in a minute. But first, you should know that Annie Meyers-Shyer is a force all her own.
Wait, who? Who's on the podcast today?
Annie Meyers-Shyer.
I'm so excited.
You guys, I came to follow her account. Everybody needs to know about her Instagram account. It's called This Oak House. And she is in the middle of a remodel from a home originally built by well-known architect Gerald Colcord. And it's a 1940s Pennsylvania Dutch style home. She's in California, and following her journey has been such a fun pastime. It's so fun because Annie is not a self-proclaimed interior designer, but she's really treating this project like she is. And it's fun to watch and see her audience get involved as she takes this remodel step by step in the 1 million decisions that you have to make on a remodel. But I will say Annie has quite the storied career, as we can't wait to talk about as well. Her professional life has stretched from coast to coast, working for brands like Chanel and Harper's Bazaar. She's a wife, a boy mom of two times over. So she has two boys, Sue.
Cheers.
And she's also the daughter of well-known Hollywood writer and director Nancy Meyers of The Holiday, Father of the Bride movie fame. We've all celebrated those sets and Nancy Meyers' work many times on this podcast. And that family history, that childhood has all influenced Annie's personal style. Annie, welcome to Dear Alice. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I am truly such a fan of the podcast, and I just can't believe I'm actually here with you guys. So thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, our audience is going to love you, and you guys need to, if you're not driving your car right now, if you have your phones, you need to open up her Instagram. It's again, This Oak House, and you need to check out this house as we talk about it today on the podcast. Cool. Definitely give her a follow. Annie, one of the things I love about you is that you're not an influencer and you don't come off as an influencer, but you're just taking us all on this journey. And as you're figuring out what the best is, then you're sharing that knowledge with us in what you have called kind of this gatekeeping field that we're in of interior design, that so many things are to the trade. And you're like, I'm going to bust this door wide open because I have to figure it out for myself. So I'm going to share it with all of you. And I think our listeners are going to love your account.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found that as I entered into this journey, first of all, I never thought in my 40s I would be learning as much as I'm learning, which is really exciting. But there was a lot of gatekeeping, and there's so much to learn. And I feel like if I can, go out there and find the great, subway tile and save somebody from that journey of going to 1 million tile stores like I did, then great. Yeah. Like I've done something good. So I'm out here really trying to share what I'm learning. I'm also really enjoying it. I'm learning and loving the process of doing this house. It's been a real labor of love, truly.
Yeah. Well, you can feel the love and the attention to detail, just like all the millions of paint swatches on the wall, just to get the very perfect shade. Every detail is so specific and so important to you. And I know our audience loves that sort of thing. So they're going to love the account. But first, I wanted to ask you the question that I asked Corey and Suzanne in the beginning, which is, what's one specific way that your mom has influenced you today?
That's a really hard question, because I think a mother's influence is kind of weaved through every fiber of a person. So there's so many different things I could pick. I would say, my mom has a real passion for what she does, for her work. And there was a famous saying in my house, which I actually think maybe started with Cole Porter, but it was that work is more fun than fun. And when I was growing up, my parents were a writing team. And so they would write movies together. My dad would direct and my mom would produce. And so I grew up, home and work was kind of all in one. And I thought naively that everybody loved their job and that everybody thought work was just the greatest thing ever. And they brought me into their journey of making movies, and they would talk to me about their ideas at the dinner table. And so by osmosis, in some way, I think I felt my opinion was valuable to these adults. And so they help me build confidence in my own ideas and my own thoughts. And that, the passion for the work is really something that she's just in the work ethic. I mean, the movie hours are so long and so hard. And my sister and I grew up seeing that. And I was like, no, 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 not for me. These hours are crazy. I can't do this. And my sister just decided to also make movies. So she knew what she was getting herself into. And then I would say, like, when it comes to design, which I'm sure is, what people want to know about with her, I think she has such a discerning eye, and in ways when you're growing up, you don't even realize it, but if she's adjusting the lights during dinner and everything, all the little touches, like home means a lot to my mom, the way our home is and the comfort level. And I see it now on TikTok, this like Nancy Meyers aesthetic and everything. It's not something I was ever aware of growing up, but she has a real care and love for home. And that's just naturally was passed on to me, I guess.
For sure. I mean, for sure, you can see how discerning you are in the details. When you talked about her being discerning, I was like, you are made to make this house that you're making, because an interior designer would be discerning, but not with your gut, because you know the way that you were raised and how you were grown and what's comfortable to you. And it's really fun watching your very discerning journey and sharing that with your viewers. So yeah. They're going to love it.
And she's she helps me I'll call her constantly and pull up a floor plan. And, she's like my very own personal expert. So
do you guys live near each other?
We do.
So she can come over and see it in person and look at the paint on the wall. So you're not like zooming her and like, well, you can't really tell through the camera.
I'm doing both. I'm saying you need to come over right now. The floor sample's here. You have to come look at the stain. And then also zooming her later, like, does it still look good in this light? And all of that.
So sweet.
Everyone needs a person. Don't you think?
Totally.
Like, just because it's so hard to, like, you kind of get paralyzed doing it for yourself over and over.
Yeah.
And over.
I do have a designer who I adore. His name's Mike Moser, and he's been amazing, but
So
when
great.
there's, you want to be able to call someone endlessly, and you can't do that with your designer, right? Like I can FaceTime her from there and then call her from the car to talk about it further. Like you can, I want to be respectful of the time that I'm, with the professionals working on my project, but I can be less respectful of her time.
I know. Yeah. And she'll be honest with you because no one knows you better. So than your mother.
Yes.
Which is so great.
Okay. Well, we talk a lot on this podcast about developing your personal style, and we would love to focus on a few specific ways that your personal style and preferences have been curated and shaped over the years. Annie.
Yes. So, I mean, I think in my work history, I would say, I worked in fashion for a really long time. I was on the editorial side at InStyle and Harper's Bazaar. And then I worked on the public relations side at Chanel. And so fashion has a lot to do with interiors. There's a huge crossover. Specifically at Chanel, I did a lot of the VIP and celebrity dressing, which is an interesting sort of part of it. Yeah, it was fun. But we worked a lot with the haute couture collection, which is handmade. Every bead that you see on a dress is put on by hand. It's the most incredible materials. And I always would sort of find myself talking about the way that these dresses are made and the women who hand make them. And when you go to the salon, you hear them talk about it. And I think there's just a real craftsmanship that they were so proud of. And so that sort of attention to detail at Chanel specifically was hugely influential to me. We talked about it endlessly and worked, with these gorgeous dresses and the craftsmanship and the hours. And when I was there, Karl Lagerfeld was designing. And so getting to see
cool.
It was. And I would go to
be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Well, I literally was a fly on the wall. But I would go to the fashion shows and, you're working up until the second they begin, you're getting people in their seats or you're figuring out where's this person, it's very chaotic before a fashion show starts. And then the lights go down and the music starts and we've worked so hard. And then you're like overcome with the emotion of the work and the beauty. And it was a very influential experience for me working there.
I bet it, what I keep hearing is that you have a high tolerance for making things the long way. Like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because there is this real fast fashion moment, but also this instant gratification thing with interior design that people do. And watching you on your Instagram account really sweat every detail, every bead that's being hand sewn on a gown, right? Watching your mom work these endlessly long hours and just knowing what it takes to build a quality product, I think makes you really queued up to build a really quality build and sweat the small stuff and care about every stain, every paint color, every knob, every decision. Like it really, really matters. And I think that's probably something that you've developed and you probably only know the long way of doing something, which is the right way, you know?
I like the long route. The house itself had a lot of details when we started, and we had to kind of take all that off to do the internal mechanisms of replacing the HVAC and all the electrical and the lighting. But we saved everything. We saved every beadboard, we saved every crown molding, and we
Oh
had
my gosh.
knives made so we could sort of put it all back. And, there's definitely ways to order beadboard from a catalog. And I think maybe if someone had told me the cost savings between making a knife and recreating the old beadboard or ordering from a catalog, I don't know what I would have done. I didn't even know that was an option at the time. But when I walk through the house and I see the level of detail that our architect put into it, and it's remarkable. And I see it and I feel it. And I think when you have that sort of trained eye, it's really special. I might be the only person who walks through the house and feels it, but I do. So I hope others do.
I mean, there's a soul for sure that I think it's so respectful that you're paying homage to that original architecture. And I think you feel it even in the imperfect moments of that beadboard.
Yes.
There's something to that, just like the story of this old house, right?
Yeah, I think
And
so. We have these two rooms. We have a pantry and a laundry room, and they're right next to each other. And the pantry is much smaller than the laundry room.
Yeah.
And our architect changed the width of the beadboard. The one in the pantry is smaller. It's a smaller room. And I remember saying to him, like, why are you doing that? And he said, you just have to trust me. It's the scale of the room. And of course, a second knife had to be made to make that beadboard. But he was totally right. It feels proportional for the room. And these are the kinds of things I'm learning through my process of the house. But it's wonderful to see those details come to life. We've looked at them in 2D for so long, and now seeing them in the house itself is great.
Oh, when do you think the house will be complete?
I would say end of summer.
Oh, that's soon.
So you'll be
Okay.
there for
Yeah.
the holidays.
So this is the fun part, is that all the finishes are actually being applied to the house and you're seeing the finished product take form. The frosting might
Yes.
not be fully on the cake yet, but it's you can see it.
There's only a few major decisions left. We have to deal with paint, which is a big decision. But other than that, I'm kind of now in the process of getting to go to the house and just seeing what's happened in the last 24 hours. It's no longer like the big decisions have to be made, which is a good place for me to be in.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
It's taking shape finally.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, I have a question. As you've lived on the East Coast, you've lived on the West Coast, and I mean, we just talked about the history of this home and paying respect to the architect, but making sure it's proportionate to the room. How have those two places that you've been and lived, again, kind of the curation of your style, how East Coast versus West Coast, how have those influenced you as far as curating your style, Annie?
I think in the West Coast, everyone talks about this sort of indoor outdoor living, but it's really true. The weather here in Los Angeles is pretty much, you wear a sweater or do not wear a sweater. It doesn't get, that's kind of as far as it goes.
For you.
Yeah, I grew up here, so it was all I knew for a while. And so there's something very casual about living here. I am a very casual person. We're a casual family. So that was weaved through the whole design process of the house. I don't have formal spaces. Our dining room has wicker chairs in it. We really wanted a house that represents how we live. And so I think there's a casual aspect of California that is really baked into the house. My husband's also from California, and so that's really who we are. And then on the flip side of that, I lived in New York when I worked at Harper's Bazaar and InStyle. I loved being on the East Coast. I spent a lot of time at the beach, so in the Hamptons and in that area. And I remember the first time I was there, it was remarkable to me that every house was like a shingle house, because when you grow up in LA, there's a traditional house, and then there's a Wallace Neff house, and then there's a hacienda. Everything is here, right? So there is not one style, but I have a friend who lives in Connecticut, and all the houses are very similar. So there's something very traditional about the sensibility of homes on the East Coast. And I loved that. And they really perfected it. That's like that perfect gray shingle is just, I live in a shingle house now. Maybe I was influenced by that. So I think there's a part of me that is traditional. I like the traditional design rules. I'm not like a big rule breaker when it comes to that. And so this specific house is a Pennsylvania Dutch style. It is very traditional. It's kind of cottagey. So melting that in with the relaxed nature of kind of who we are at our core is what I'm hoping to accomplish. So we'll see if I'm able to do so.
I love that. That's a great answer. I think that's kind of how most of our clients are. There's always a blend between the two spouses, and they generally want opposite things, which is kind of, opposite coasts, like you just talked about. She usually wants cozy. He usually wants contemporary or clean or edited because he doesn't understand accessories or all the fuss, right?
So interesting.
So it feels like going into it, you're usually working with these opposite ideas that you kind of have come together in the middle. So if you're out there listening, I want you to know that you're normal. This is something, obviously Annie is working on the two different coasts in your mind, not to mention like you're a boy mom, right? And
I am.
You're also married. And so you have some other opposing ideas that kind of
minority
come into play. Yes, you are the minority.
I have a male dog. I live with all boys. I will say that's one of my sort of regrets in the design of the house is that I have chosen a lot of beautiful fabrics, and I really, in retrospect, would have preferred to do some perennials in maybe the breakfast room or something like that. I didn't do anything like that. I felt like this was my home that I live in now. I've lived here through the pandemic. I had two little boys here. It was like my house took a beating. And so I really saw this opportunity as like, this is going to be where I'm going to, have a nicer fabrics and all of that. And then realize like the kids are still going to have like pirate booty dust all over their hands. And what was I thinking? But there's all kinds of things you can spray fabrics with. And I plan to do that. And, I think it's form over function. I think in a lot of instances, I took form over function. And in some others, we have a room that's between my boys' room, and it's a TV room for them and a hang room. And I tried to make it a really deep sofa. And I want our house to be the house that the kids come to. We live sort of far from their schools. So I have to do everything I can to bring everyone to our house. As long as they don't eat or drink in that room, I'll be fine.
How old are your boys?
They're 8 and 10.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah. They love bouncing balls in the house, all that kind of stuff.
Like boys do. Yeah. Sounds like they're boys. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just, they like to step on sofas, all the things.
Launching from everything. They just launch their bodies.
They love to launch. It's wild.
It's amazing that they are alive at the end of the day. You're just no other human would have survived that. But
I grew up with just a sister, and this is just not how we behaved at all.
You're just like, you're ridiculous.
It's so
that's
true.
So irresponsible children.
Definitely. Well, Sue's definitely living the boy mom life as well. And also trying to have style while doing it, I think is always going to be, it's always going to be the thing. And as they get older, like Sue, your boys, tell her your ages.
Yeah. So I have a 9-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. So anyway, so I have some little ones. I had a couple during the pandemic too. So
you can't reason with the little guys. They're kind of like terrorists. Yes. And I feel like maybe now 8 and 10, you can be like, okay, mom has really done a good job to make your life comfortable in this TV setting. You're not going to enjoy food in here or whatever you're going to do. I don't know. I don't know. Best of luck.
I might need it. It was in retrospect, maybe not the greatest decision to do a nice expensive fabric in there, but it'll be fine. It will be fine.
And like through, obviously we'll all look back at pictures of like how we grew up, but like they'll have like an imprint of like what the backdrop is that you built for them.
I hope so. The house itself is a very cozy house. We have 8-foot ceilings in a lot of rooms, which at first I thought was a little bit of a design challenge. But one of the things about this house is it belonged to my mother-in-law. She relocated at the beginning of the pandemic. And so we have a lot of family memories already in this house. And now it's taking on a sort of a second life, or maybe it's probably the house's 8th or 9th life. But for us, it's a second life. And I think my kids already have a lot of memories in this house. And so I'm excited to build new ones with them. Like, it's already a family home, which is really nice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that.
That's so sweet for your husband. I'll bet he's excited to get to occupy it in its second chapter in their family.
Yes, I also think he didn't grow up there, which is great because he wasn't like married to any of the things. You know, we took out a staircase. Like, we did a lot of like rearranging of things, and there was a tree in the backyard, which I believe he shed a tear over it coming down. It was very sad. The tree was dead. We had to take it out. But there were some things that were emotional. Yeah. But I think also my mother-in-law is so happy to see us now coming into the house. It's really nice.
I love that. That's so good. Okay. Next question. You were a set kid. You grew up in Hollywood, and you say through inexperience lies an influence you've had to push back on a bit. After growing up as a set kid, growing up in Hollywood, can you speak to that a little bit?
I wouldn't say that I had any awareness that I like grew up in Hollywood. You know, my parents were writers for a big part of their work life. So they were home, which was great.
Yeah.
And they would pick me up from school and make me a snack. I mean, they were really there home because they were writing. And then there were big portions of my life where they were making films. And I think the biggest thing I took away from the movie making is it's magic. You can build a whole house on a soundstage. And watching that world be created, and it's endless what you can do on a movie set. It's amazing. It's absolute movie magic. And so that was fun to see all that growing up and seeing the ideas come to life and walking on a stage and it being a full home in every way. And then walking outside and realizing you're just, at Sony Pictures or something. It's definitely magical and special seeing those houses come to life. I mean, I remember being at the Something's Gotta Give house. It was the entire house on a soundstage. It's amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I feel amazing.
I feel like the first part of opening our store in 2008, everybody would come in and say, I want my house to look like that Something's Gotta Give house.
To feel like that.
Sure.
Yeah. And every consultation we would go on, like, that was the quote unquote feeling that women wanted in their home. And so to learn that it's not even a real home, is mind-boggling, but it was real because they still had to create it. It wasn't AI.
The exterior was real. So when they drove up, that was a real house in the Hamptons. But from the moment they were in the door, that's a set.
Wow. Amazing.
Full set. Yeah. It was amazing. Up to the cookbooks were perfect, and pots and pans in the drawers. It was amazing. Yeah.
Do you find yourself, like, especially as you start to get in the next several weeks, you're going to start to move into your home, and then you're going to start to like kind of curate all those details. I'm sure that's what happens now in your current home, where this kind of is romantic, this whole idea of like staging your home, how you live.
I think so. I think right now I'm in the stage of like, how many bath mats do I need? Like, I'm in the trying to make sure I have all the things.
You're ready to go.
I really want to move in and get like art on the wall, candy in the dishes. Like, I want to be in when we move in. So I'm in that stage. I also, for the longest time, haven't been able to buy any, like, we're buying furniture, but it's going into storage. So I'm buying a lot of tchotchkes and bowls and little things because it's fun to think about all those things and where they're going to go in the new house and the feeling of staging it and decorating it. I mean, I'm working with someone who I love, but I can't wait I'm sure he won't want me there for the install, but I'll just like be peeking out through the window, like put that over to the left or whatever it is. Like, I hope he lets me come in and help do all that, because that sounds just so fun.
Yeah. That last layer really is kind of the storytelling of like the people that live there, and it's so personal. So I think you should definitely get to be involved in that last layer. For sure.
The photos that I respond to online or on Pinterest or on Instagram are the ones that look like people's homes. You know, I
Yeah.
don't want to look at something that looks like a hotel room. That doesn't speak to me. I like seeing photos and frames. I love that sort of personal feeling in someone's home when you walk around and you can see their little collections or whatever it is that speaks to them. I love that. I'm not attracted to rooms that are very sterile or don't feel like you know who lives there.
Mm-hmm. Are you bringing elements from your current home to the new home so that will feel familiar, or are you getting all new furniture?
I am bringing all of the people that live here with
Mm-hmm.
me. And then I am bringing, I would say, accessories, but furniture is not coming. A few things, like a few pieces are being recovered.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we lived through the pandemic in this house. Like the stuff kind of took a beating.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting
Yeah.
mostly new things.
Such a
I
thrill.
love that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'll bet. That's so exciting. And it's this summer, which is amazing.
I hope so. That's
Yeah.
what I think. I think it's the summer.
Yeah.
I'm planning on it. I'll be there with my suitcases at the end of the summer. So I hope you let me in.
Ready with accessories. They like or not. And you'll be there for the holidays.
I cannot wait to decorate for the holidays.
Like
Mm,
nothing feels
Seems
more
like
like
the
home.
most fun. I know.
I'm curious to know if your Instagram is going to continue once the house is built.
I would like to continue it. Yes. In what form? I'm not sure yet. I
Yeah.
haven't had the
Well,
sort
I'll
of
just have to-
bandwidth to think about
Yeah.
what it will do next,
Yeah.
but I would like to for sure.
Mhm. What made you start the account?
I started the account. I had a friend on the East Coast who was building a house a few years ago, and she started an account. And I had so much fun weighing in on her paint choices or her hardware choices. So I did it really, truly, honestly for my friends who can't come and see what I'm doing. Never in a million years did I think I would have even 1,000 followers. So I was surprised to see the journey that it's taken. It's been really fun. And building a house, as you guys know better than anyone, can be hard. There are really hard days. And so it's fun to have a nice community. And this has been a bright spot for me, being able to share the experience on my Instagram.
That's so good. For anybody who hasn't seen her account yet, Annie, can you describe your style for people?
I think my style is comfortable, traditional. I am trying to, my goal with our home is that it feels like us, like a young family who lives there. There aren't going to be formal rooms. I hope all of our rooms are used. You know, we are definitely a family who loves comfortable things. So deep sofas and cozy rooms. And my kids' rooms are going to be colorful because they're colorful. And the rest of the house has less color, I would say. I love a sort of a calm palette, I would say. I'm very into the color yellow. There's a lot of yellow in this house.
Nice.
Very happy.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm trying to accomplish. I hope that we do that.
With fashion, is there something that is different for you with the palette, or do you feel like you're still pretty true? Because I agree that we take so many cues from fashion, especially that lifestyle piece when we're working with somebody. And sometimes people can't describe their style. And so we'll be like, let's go to your closet. Let's see the thing. I want to see the dress that you feel most beautiful in, or show me your favorite pair of shoes. And you can get a feel for how formal they are, or how casual they are, or what lights them up. What colors do they feel beautiful? You're trying to understand this, and fashion is usually the easiest connection to home, I feel like.
Sure. I would find it surprising if someone was a very loud dresser but wanted a really quiet palette at home. I'm sure there's a lot of through line. I am a very simple dresser. I am a jeans and t-shirts kind of person. Very simple.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been that way. I also think in fashion, some of the most iconic women are those who have a great uniform. And I'm a little bit like that. I'm not very adventurous in my fashion. I kind of know what I think it works for my body type, and I kind of just stick to it.
Yeah.
And with the house, you know, in some ways I started to do things that were a little bit what I thought I wanted. And then I ended up bringing it back to what felt more like me. Simple colors that I think will be beautiful together. And also, everything is very expensive, and I don't want to make choices that I'm going to regret in 5 or 10 years. I want to be able to look back at these choices and feel good about them. I really avoid trends. Anything that I see over and over on Instagram Instagram pretty much is something I'll avoid. I really look to, homes that were built 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. What still works in those houses? And that's what I try to do in this house. Especially, I think you can definitely have more fun with the furnishings, but when it comes to the actual architecture of the house, I chose extremely traditional materials. I, have soapstone and marble and subway tile and things that I hopefully will be able to look back on and feel really good about.
Yeah, that's hard to tire of any of those.
I think so.
Don't you also feel like being, or at least I find this a luxury, is like being a woman in my 40s, I've lived long enough that I've seen different trends, if you will, come and go. And you see them getting tired and like waning, and then you see things that have been around that you've always loved. And you growing up, I'm sure in a lovely home, since your mom is Nancy Meyers. And did I hear that your mom's mom is an interior designer?
She was. My grandmother was a bit of an interior designer. Well, she was kind of an original like DIY girl. Like she was always refinishing something or there was a lot of that kind of work. And then when she was in her last chapter, she was doing interior design and helping her friends out. And I loved my grandmother's house. It was so cozy. So that is definitely a through line through all of us.
Yeah.
For sure.
So seeing like grandma's house be beautiful and interesting, and mom's, and growing up in a beautiful home, you've kind of seen different things kind of come and go, or things that just feel good or feel like home. And being in your 40s, you probably have a little bit of wisdom of having grown up in, certain decades. We're like, oh man, I am going to avoid that like the plague. But it's kind of nice, right? Letting all of that experience of different homes and different lifestyles and different eras help you make the decisions today that for certain you're not going to tire of, because you've seen enough, to really inform your decisions.
For sure. And that was kind of the touchstone I would go back to, because sometimes I can get really attracted to a trend. There's something I'm like, well, that looks so great and everybody's doing it. And that's the thing about fashion, right? Like you can just buy that easy, trendy thing because it's at Zara and it's easy. But when it comes to your home, I have avoided that at all costs. I mean, all of my faucets and fixtures are polished nickel. I've really tried to do the thing that I feel confident I will love for a long time. Somebody asked me in an AMA last week, when do you anticipate redoing your bathrooms and kitchen? When will you tire of it? And I was like, redo it? Never. I'm
like
in.
backspace.
Are you kidding me? I'm never redoing it. This is it.
This is the long game that I'm playing.
This is the long game.
Yeah.
I am not here.
I'm killing myself over here over these decisions because I'm making this choice once. And maybe you'll just sell the house at that point if you're ready for something new.
But in one of our bathrooms, we were going to do Delft tile, which obviously is an old traditional, beautiful thing. And we had the tiles and we loved them. And I actually chose not to do them because even though they're so beautiful and so storied and have such a rich history, they were having a moment. And I wanted to not participate with anything that was having a moment. I was just afraid of how I would feel, in a year from now. So I hope I made all the right choices. And then when it comes to the furniture and the pillows and the fabrics, that stuff is easier to change. Over time.
Yeah, for certain.
I have a question for you. Through this whole process, and like it sounds like you've stayed like really true to like your personal curated style and what you know to be right for the long game. What decisions in this process have lit you up that you were just so excited to live with? Was it the slab shopping? Was it the tile? Was it the furniture, the art?
No, those were all agony. I would say those were agony. Absolutely.
Building a house.
Yeah. I went to every if there was a marble yard within like 100 miles of Los Angeles, I hit it up. I was like having to disguise myself as I would go back and back and back.
You were sunnies and hats on.
Truly, I was like in disguise. The thing that has lit me up the most, I would say, is discussing our landscape and the furniture in the backyard. In the house I live in now, we have a very, very small backyard, and we put in a basketball hoop for my boys. So my whole backyard is more or less a basketball hoop. And I love being outside. So I'll go sit on like the steps out front of my house to take a phone call. I really love being outside. So the idea that we are going to have a yard and a pool and outdoor furniture and have an outdoor kitchen and entertain. It's like a fantasy world. I've purchased the furniture, the stone is on the way. Like I know what's happening, but for some reason that part feels almost like hard to believe. I'm so excited to have a pool. You know, my kids have to go to a friend's house or my mom's house to go swimming out, like that. We're going to have that and they're going to be able to enjoy it. And I can't wait for that outdoor living. I'm so excited about it.
Especially because you live in California and you deserve that yard. Yeah.
That's your next account, This Oak Backyard.
Yeah.
I know. We can follow that journey.
Totally.
Do plantings and
We
whatnot.
are, it's been basically a pile of mulch and dirt, and it's starting to really start to take shape now. And I'm so excited.
Well, we ask a question to all the guests that come on here. And I'm really curious about your answer. The question is, how do you define luxury? And I think because you've worked for Chanel and Harper's Bazaar, and you're in the middle of this build, and you have so much going on, I'm sure you could answer this 5 different ways. But in this moment, Annie Meyers-Shyer, how would you define luxury?
I would define luxury as being able to take your time. Truly. I think time is a luxury. I think people have been patient with me through this process. I see that as a luxury. I feel that people have respected my process. I see that as a luxury. Being able to have time to think about things, be thoughtful. Nothing that I've done has been a snap decision, and being able to have time to do this and do this process right. This whole thing has been a luxury. And I think that's partially why I take it so seriously. I don't know that I'll be able to do this again. This has been an unbelievable experience, and getting to do one home would be amazing. If I get to do it again, I mean, let's see if I survive this one, but I would love to do it again. But I do think that time is the ultimate luxury, having the time to do this right, take my time, be thoughtful about it. I think that would be my definition of luxury right now.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful answer.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's like the one thing that we can't get back.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing we all run out of, you know? And so time really is the greatest luxury. That's such a great answer. Well, thank you to our special guest, Annie Meyers-Shyer.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And
it was so fun.
Oh, thank you. You guys, again, be sure to follow along her home renovation project. You've heard how special and painstaking each of her decisions has been. So it's just such a treat to follow. It's again at This Oak House. Oak is OAK, just like it sounds. I just wanted to make sure you didn't think that you heard me say old house. So it's This Oak House, and it's on Instagram. And happy Mother's Day to all of the moms out there. If you love a mom and still need a great gift, this one is for you. We're offering 20% off of our digital gift cards. This means that you can choose your own gift or give mom the chance to pick out an Alice Lane piece that she will love. That digital gift card is emailed to you, so it will arrive right on time. And we will catch you next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like our show, please leave a 5-star rating.